Yeah, Skyler just wrapped up with Renan. That's a really fun conversation, really unique business.
Yeah, definitely. The manufacturing business is definitely a legacy, what they call antiquated business, but it's been around forever and it's a huge part of our GDP, right?
Yep.
Globally, that I haven't really heard anybody work on to, reindustrialize, as they call it, or upscale, add AI to the mix. So Renan is definitely doing some interesting things, and how he operates as a venture studio, working with clients potentially to, be part of, other things he's doing, which is pretty fascinating as well. He has an interesting model that I haven't really seen before.
Yeah, he brought up the Munger, Charlie Munger, like,
Yeah,
show me the incentive, I'll show you the outcome.
incentives.
He's all about the incentives, and I
Yeah,
think he does a really good job of lining those up between the factories that he's working with, the teams that he's working with, and his fund in general. So it's and like to your point, it's manufacturing is not something we typically are talking about with folks. It's
yeah,
investing in other companies versus more of this I don't know what you call it, venture studio model, which I think is also really cool.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I think he's created a unique moat in his space of how he's aligning incentives to his clients as well as his partners and investors, for sure.
yeah. So yeah, there's a lot we get into. We get into the companies he works with. His background's really interesting. But yeah, just the concept of like reshoring manufacturing. I think it's great because the other aspect of this, like you hear this for individual companies, like you hear this with like we get into Tesla a little bit, like Tesla. What's the other one? Palmer's company. Like bringing onshore
Yeah.
for like more like war manufacturing, but you don't hear this like
Hmm.
happening in broad scale. So it's really cool what he's doing. Really fun interview.
Yeah, I think it's great. Absolutely. Definitely a unique perspective.
Yeah. Well, cool. Without further ado, let's get into it.
Jump into the episode.
Thanks for tuning into the All Funds Network podcast. My name is Mike Schroeder. Today I'm joined by my co-host Styler Steinke, and we are joined by Renan. Uh, Renan, I'm gonna botch your last name, man.
It's fine.
Devieres.
Devieres.
You
Devieres.
nailed it.
Let's
There you
go.
go.
Awesome. Well, quick intro on Renan. Renan, after gaining experience in various fields, Renan ventured into entrepreneurship by co-founding a startup that he sold in 2018. Always been drawn by technology in industry. Renan co-founded OSS Ventures in 2019. And his mission is to support the U.S. and European industry and technological, environmental, social, and societal transition as we move into, from industry 2.0 to 4.0. So, Renan, thank you so much for joining us today. We're excited to have you on.
Thank you for having me. It's very cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, maybe, we'd love to just kick it off, just learn about your background. So, yeah, maybe just start there. We'll, slowly get into OSS.
Yeah, sure. So, uh, I was a I was a nerdy kid. So I disassembled the TV of my parents when I was like 12. I also like when internet first came, I got grounded because I spent like the equivalent of my dad's salary on internet credits because you were paying for bandwidth at the time. So I was a nerdy kid.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
And France is a very weird country where if you're really good at math, the state pays for your school. And so I went to like the best school of math in France. It was a blast. I spent about all my time there trying to code a bot able to play poker because I was figuring out like if I solve that, I'm rich forever. I can do
Mhm.
cool things. So the bot was playing poker, but it was losing a lot. And so I had to pivot from that career path. And I literally went to like 2 weeks before graduation. And 2 weeks before graduation, like the French guys told me, you know that you have to pay back everything that we spent, or you have to basically be a public servant. And I was like, what? Quick look at my bank account. And I was like, okay, public servant it is. And so I went to the OECD and they tried to get me to become an economist. I did like 6 months of economy. I was like, this is bullshit. And I said to the OECD, look, you have like 30 different databases with different ways of coding things. So I'm going to create a unified database where everything is the same name, and so you can use it once. And so they said, all right. And I did that for 1.5 years. I'm still like, I still receive something to know from the time. And after 2 years and 1 day, I said, hey, thank you for all the fish, paid my debts, see ya. And so
Mm-hmm.
I figured out, okay, I don't want to work public, so I want to work private. If I want to work private, I need to be a CEO, right? So I literally went on Google and I typed company that created the most CEO on earth. It was like McKinsey and company. I didn't know what consulting was, and I didn't know how to read a P&L, but they hired me anyways. So they hired me, and I was the only math nerd in McKinsey in my promotion at the time. And I guess that first time there was a supply chain mission, they were like, ha, is someone good at math? And I was like, me, I guess. And so they got me to supply chain mission. I fell in love with manufacturing and never looked back. So after that, I was a factory director. I was a creative director. Worked for like 5 years in operations. Created a startup in San Francisco because I was tired of all the world of operations, like political games and everything. And so I created a startup, tech startup in San Francisco, made every single possible mistake under the sun, but ended up selling my company in 2018 after like hyperscaling and finding product market fit. And I got some money and I was like, what do I do with my life? And the answer was, all right, I've been exposed to tech. I know operations and manufacturing. I'm going to launch a fund that invests in companies that are doing tech for manufacturing. The caveat was at the time, nobody was giving a damn about operations. And so there were literally 400 companies on Earth, like on the cave, which is like 2 orders of
Not
magnitude.
a lot.
Yeah, 2 orders of magnitude, not enough. And so instead of investing in companies that were not existing, I chose to create those companies. And so we went on the venture builder model. So our model is we go to factories, we understand what's going on, we find the pain points. And when we find a big pain point, we create the thing, we hire founders. We literally go to founders and say, hey, you have a company, it's not working well, just quit your company and come working for the company we're creating, it's way better. And in 5 years and a half, we did that 22 times. We are doing 41 million in ARR. We are live in 3,800 factories all over the world. And we have 200,000 users like on 5 continents. So yeah, been working pretty well, and we have a return investment that is unlike any other fund because, well, we're not a fund. That's right. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, this is cool. There's a lot of ways I want to take this. Let's start. So, okay, so after you finished your 2 years, so you were thinking you were getting a free ride at college.
Yeah.
They told you you had to be a public servant for 2 years, so you did that. Uh, Afterwards, you started working at a factory,
Yeah.
and you kind of got like the feel for it. Okay, and then when you created OSS Ventures, so kind of the idea was really to like you've been to these factories, so you've seen that there's a lot of inefficiencies, and you really wanted to kind of make these like tech first factories. Is that right?
Yeah. And also, I visited Tesla in like 2018, and I was like, holy damn, this is the future. Right? This is literally what every single factory will look like in 10 to 15 years. Like every single factory will be a tech company. And this was so clear to me. And I thought, okay, I want to be part of that. And my way of being part of that was to launch the tech company helping the factories.
Yeah. Okay, let's give us kind of like one example. So maybe like take us to like the when after you started OSS, maybe what's one of like your first or one of your favorite projects that you worked on to kind of make it more efficient.
Yeah. So for example, one that I really like, it's called Cognites. And so um, there is that thing in factories that's called industrialization. And so industrialization is once you know what you need to produce, how do I produce it? So you say, okay, it goes to this machine and then this machine, but like in the first machine, you need to write the program and you do that program and then you do the second program for the second machine and you do the quality brief. Then you need to check this and that. And so basically it's the cooking recipe for making things. All right. Uh, for one IO client, he told me that every year there are 32,000 hours on creating the cooking recipe. It's data in, data out. This is the golden use case for automation and AI. And so we said to that guy, hey, all right, what about reduce that to like 2,000 hours? And he said, holy damn, like if you do that, I'm covering you, like showing you with money. And we were like, okay. And so we literally took like 10 engineers, went to the factory. We discovered so much. We rediscovered a part of what Palantir already knew, which is do the ontology of the different objects, and you put AI to create the right part of the ontology and everything. You cover the rules that are governing the ontology and everything. But at the end, we were wrong. It was not 2,000 hours, it was 500.
Amazing.
And
crazy.
yeah. And it is not a world first, like it's probably a world second or world third. But for example, Shein, like the Chinese company that's doing t-shirts, it's been 2 years that like 50% of the products they sell have been designed by AI, and then the industrialization has been done by AI. So it's not like it exists in other verticals. And so this is exactly the type of project that we want to do. Because also when you do that, you negate the cost of labor. And so instead of having a lot of people with a very low salary doing very repetitive jobs, you have a few very high paying jobs that you can basically put anywhere in the world, especially in high cost countries. And so in addition, you get less dependent to countries where I would like my daughter to live in. So that's a plus.
Yeah, very interesting. So as you mentioned in your example here, your team spends weeks inside factories before a single line of code is even written, right?
Oh yeah.
It's definitely unique from a venture studio perspective, kind of how one operates. You're actually in the factories working on solving the problems from automation and growth and scale versus just acquiring the company or buying the company and helping that process.
Yeah, and
you're actually in there doing
it's so important. So in the past, return on manufacturing technology has been really shitty. So if you're an investor, don't invest in those companies. I think there is a very fundamental reason why, which is the contact surface between technological people and the world of factories is very, very low. Like go to San Francisco, go to like a coffee where you can get a latte for $20. Okay. So you will find tech people over there. Ask them how a factory works. You'll get hilarious responses. So the people who know how to do tech are not in the factory. That has changed a bit with SpaceX, with Tesla, with BYD, with Xiaomi, with those companies. And this is no, like, it is very, very simple why ex-Tesla, ex-Palantir, ex-BYD are very successful when they launch startups in tech, because they are from tech and they know factories. And so if you want to create good companies, you need to add that contact surface. So just to give you some numbers, my team and I, in 5 years and a half, we physically went to 980 factories. 2 days ago, I was in a factory in Hanoi with 19,000 employees. Next week, I'm in Boston. Actually, I'm not in Boston because when I say to people I'm in Boston because they get, I'm actually in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, because in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, there is one of the largest plastic compounders in the world. And so we physically go there. We send the devs to go there. And when you do that and you do it like with intensity, it is actually not that hard to create great companies. You just have to open your eyes, choose a very big, very good problem to solve, and just do the work.
Yeah. So I love this concept, and I love your mission that you guys are bringing this to, I think in your line it was United States and Europe. I think it's really cool. So talk to us about with like, this maybe this company in Boston, Rhode Island. This is a great example. Like, talk to us about like, we don't need to get into specifics about what the company is or who it is, but like, why don't they just do this internally versus bringing you guys in? Kind of talk to us about the difference there. And
So
I'm sure it's a lot of like legacy stuff too, right?
So I love this company. It's public, so I can tell you about it. It's called Techno Apex. It's a Boston-based company. It's like 2 billion turnover. It's 101 year old. Okay, it's a family business. They have 2 billion turnover. Okay, so it's a huge operation. They are incredibly great at what they do. They are really good at design. They are really good at operational efficiency. They cannot, for the life of them, figure out technology. My typical startup that I create, I invest $500,000 in solving one thing, and then they go on and they raise 3, 10, 25 million. The total raised by the 22 companies that we created is $100 million. Do we think that a single company will invest $25 million in creating the tech AI assets that are needed to solve a $10 million problem? Answer is no. But if you solve a $10 million problem with only a 25 million investment and you have 100 clients, you do the math. It's a really good business. And
Yeah,
so
this
that's
is
the first
great.
kind of thing.
For
Okay, so
sure.
you
Yeah.
so kind of the model is you guys are creating these companies. So like you're going to go to other companies that have like a kind of a similar setup maybe,
Yep,
and use those efficiencies learned to help them more efficient.
exactly. And
And
those early adopters, those design partners, they gift us their issues. So
yeah,
we
yeah,
go to the factories and we say, hey, like, open your P&L, explain to us what's going on. Let's find the big things, like the big gains together. And usually it's big for them, but it's not big enough to justify a true tech investment of 10, 20, $30 million. But
Mm.
a lot, like in the world of manufacturing, so manufacturing globally is like 30% of GDP. If you take also warehousing and transportation and everything. So fintech is only 12% of GDP. So finance is 12%. Manufacturing is 12%. So it's enormous. But a lot of the time, big problems are still subsidized for any single company experiencing anything. So that's the bulk of it. And so my way of making that deal too good to be true is when I go to design partners, I say, hey, you give us that problem, we build the tech to solve it, and it's free until it works. And you only pay when you work. And only for the 3 first clients. I'm not mad. But this is so good for them. And like as an investor, like I made some money in my previous company and now we have some money to deploy. As an investor, would you rather invest in giving incredible engineers 3 clients who already validated that if you solve this is a $10 million problem? Or would you rather give it to like someone with 0 clients and saying, hey, good luck, find a good problem, find a good tech, have some luck. I'm busy doing a podcast, can talk to you. Like that, this is nonsense in terms of capital efficiency, if you ask me.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, this is really interesting because I think manufacturing has always been a big opportunity for many, but very few that people can solve with the big problems that are out there. And it's always been a legacy
Yeah.
business too, right? A lot of folks been there doing it for a long time. What are some operational realities or some things you're seeing on, in this case, U.S. factory floors that people often miss or underestimate? Tell us about what you're actually seeing, the problems maybe at a high level that maybe someone would not really think that's really an issue.
Yeah. So electrification and like pressure on raw material makes it so that a lot of things that were true in the past are not true anymore, especially for a product. Like routinely, you have like a supply chain director or a CEO calling you and say, hey, like I'm taking a 10% hit on raw material. Like, what do I do? Can I pass that? And the hidden truth is, if you are surfacing, you will think, oh, I need to better manage my supply chain. Blah, blah, blah. The reality is you have to redo your product. So the iPhone that will be produced in India and then in the US, because iPhone can be produced in the US in the next 5 years, will be fundamentally different as a product in their architecture because you are dealing with a new set of constraints. So the old set of constraints was raw material is cheap, energy is cheap, it is easy to get oil, it is easy to work with China and the others. All of that thing is gone. Like it's out. It's never coming back. Never. Like we're going at war and everything. It's never coming back. You cannot do the product that was fitted to the old constraints and hope to win in the new world. So you have to do the new product. And so what's really interesting to me is that, for example, the Apple guys are really very intelligent. So they already understood that. And they're fundamentally rethinking a lot of the constraints of the previous iPhone to change where you make it and how you make it. And so in the next 5 to 10 years, there will be a lot of companies not able to do that, not able to reinvent their product line to fit with the new reality. They will go under. And there will be a lot of newly created companies and newly created products that perfectly fits that new set of constraints, and they will be winning a lot. For example, my Boston client is a genius. Uh, like he has all those plastic compounding factories in the US. And he was like, nah, that's hard to operate. A lot of people are going into like offshore and everything. Yeah, okay. Some years of tariffs, some years of trade war. the business is booming, let me tell you so.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I guess, would you see then, I guess from what you just mentioned earlier, are we going to see kind of a resurgence of reshoring
Oh yeah.
happening of scale,
Oh
given
yeah.
what you're talking
100%.
about?
And there are two good reasons for reshoring. The first is like war geopolitics things. But there's a second, which is with AI, people can have a lot of leverage. And so when you can have 5 guys running all the programming for all the machines in your 10 factories, you can pay those guys $500,000. When you had to put like 10 guys locally in each of your factories, it's harder to reshore because like cost. But like it's like saying, would you offshore like Google? No, like you have PhD and incredibly intelligent people, and when they press enter, the thing is done for like 1 billion people. So manufacturing is going to go through the same leverage. And so when people in manufacturing are going to press enter on their keyboard, it is going to be sent to a lot of machines and everything. And so cost of labor is not going to be an issue. And so that's why there will be a lot of reshoring. Of course, it's going to take time. Of course, it's not going to be the same across all verticals. For example, you guys, not us in Europe unfortunately, but you guys in the US, you are going to do chips, and working in chips is going to be a highly paid endeavor, and that's really cool.
Yeah, 100%. What are some like the biggest efficiencies you're seeing? Like, is it robotics, AI, anything else in general?
The biggest thing that so we visited 980 factories. We have a database with like each maturity where they are the things that they have done. About 6% of those factories are doing huge gains with AI. It's almost always the same thing. And the thing is white collar automation. So basically people in an office. Blue collar automation is largely down. So the things that can be automated are largely not in the US and not in Europe anyway. Like, yes, if you are able to do robotics and automate t-shirt handling, then you can reshore t-shirt production in the US. For now, it's not a reality. But if you can like have only 3 planners for your 14 factories, then it's a huge gain because before you had like 30 or 40. And so we are seeing a lot of gains in those like office kind of occupations with like repetitive intellectual work being automated by AI.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And obviously on the AI side of things, AI has been around for a while. People talk about AI. They've been talking about, the promise of AI for decades, right? With factories. What's changing now? What do you think? What's been the huge shift that you've seen in 2026 moving forward?
We have the first examples of things that work. In 25, it was like, yeah, it will work. In 26, it's okay, that worked. Few, like 6%. There's that like MIT study saying 95% of all projects fail. What we are seeing is huge gains in AI. And what we are seeing and kind of discovering is the way to actually do that is the Palantir way. So you have to fly your engineers, a lot of engineers, to actually understand what's going on. Our constant learning is that 40 to 60% of the data that are needed to really automate a system are actually not in the system. So you need to discover them. Basically, if you want to mimic what the planner has in mind when he takes decisions about planning, you need to talk with the planner and you need to put that in the system because that's not in the system. The current systems, they have, oh, he took the decision, but you don't know why. And more often than not, you don't know that it's because someone sent a mail and that he had a discussion with another guy saying, hey, I cannot make it on next shift because someone's missing. And so you need to really understand those systems. But when you do, the gains are enormous.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that. I think the building for the human with a step-by-step process is much different than building with the technology that we see, right? It's you may have 6 or 7 steps, but when you dig into it, maybe you only need 3.
Yeah, and
To your point.
also the data that you need to take your decision are sometimes like not existing in any system. We went to a cosmetics manufacturer and we said, hey, thank you so much for giving us all the data. We want to help you automate that process, which is like which plastic bottle I'm going to use depending on the characteristics of like the liquid that you put in the plastic bottle. And we're like, how do you decide? And the guy says, I'm going to show you the Bible. I was like, is the guy like Christian? And no, so the Bible is a 500-page PDF that the guy has been writing for the last 20 years, which basically
Wow.
explains all the rules and like the know-how that he has in mind. I was like, This is amazing. This is indeed the Bible. I like it.
Yeah, I just a quick question going back to OSS as a company. Obviously, you're doing some really cool things. Is it just a venture studio? Obviously, you're going into different aspects. It's more of a hybrid model, right? Would you say?
Yeah.
Because you
So
also have a fund attached to it.
yeah, so we have a fund. So basically we create the companies, and then we have an investment fund that reinvests in the companies. And so the investment fund is $44 million. It's probably going to be 75 by the end of the year. And the way we do it is we create the companies, and then when someone wants to invest in our companies, like the companies that we created, we just like invest along their side to not be limited. And so those are the two things that we run, and it's very important because we need capital to make all those success stories and do all those things right. And so we are very lucky because we have long-lasting partners and industrial partners. Actually, I went to a lot of my industrial clients when I was reading the fund. And I like, you like the things that we do? Oh yeah, it's making a lot of money. I was like, do you want to make more money? Like, yeah. I was like, okay, so here's the deal. You invest in the fund, and so I send my guys to solve your issues, and if they solve issues, then they raise funds. And when they raise funds, you de facto invest in the companies that are solving the problem. And so you win because your problems are solved, but you also win because you are investing in the companies that are solving the problem, so it's getting equity value. And they were like, I love it.
That's a
That's a
great
great
point.
model.
It's well, because
Yeah.
I was going to ask, because like some of these companies I could imagine are probably maybe like a little bit hesitant to give you guys some of this information because it's, you're going to automate for them, but then you're going to help their competitor automate. But in your case, you guys are giving them some equity, so they become they're along for the ride.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
like it's the guy from Berkshire Hathaway that was saying like
Warren Buffett.
Warren Buffett,
the other one,
Charlie Munger.
Charlie
the,
Munger.
this one. So Charlie Munger was saying like incentives are like the most important thing in the world, and it's still so hard to do. And I firmly believe that incentives are really important. And so I want my industrial clients to say, fuck yeah, that's amazing. And I want the founders to say, that's amazing also. And so, for example, I give to my founders, to the founders of one company, they get some shares of the OSS structure. So like,
Okay,
I
the
always tell them,
GP.
hey, exactly. I always tell them, hey, we do like 2 unicorns, you're set, even if your company fails. And so they have a really extremely important incentive for everyone to be successful. And my industrial clients, I want them to be incentivized for us to be successful.
Great
That's really
point.
cool thought process. Yeah. What should a investor these days think about the industrial software paradigm as an asset class, right? Given what you just laid out, which is pretty cool.
So I wrote that thing on SAP, got some slides, right? Uh, industrial software used to be an oligopoly, okay? SAP, Dassault, PTC, and like Schroeder. They were taking like 90% market share, and they have been brutalizing all industrial clients for 20 years. If you look at the R&D spend of, for example, Salesforce versus the R&D spend of like SAP, you're like, what? And the thing that has changed with AI is that a lot of those system of record companies are very, very, very in danger. Dassault is down 50% in the last year. SAP is down 45% in the last year. And so the brutalization is over. I am seeing so many cool people, cool tech people wanting to say, hey, let's finally give good tech to those guys because we need to reshore. We also need to prepare potentially for war. Like in Europe, that's a very real thing. And I think you're coming, I think we are coming to that idea also. And war is logistics and war is production. And so we need to win, and we cannot let some 40-year-old code like run your factory. That's not what it's done. And so, for example, Tesla, they created their own ERP. It's called Warp. The technology is fundamentally different. It's a graphics thing.
But
And
what's in ERP for those listening?
oh, sorry. So ERP is enterprise resource planning. It's like that very big piece of technology that says, here are all my clients, here are all my lines, here are all my factories, my production capabilities, here are all my suppliers. And so you basically say, and all my employees. And you say, okay, I'm taking all my clients. I say to them that it will be done in 2 months. I call my supplier to say, hey, give me that thing at that price. And then I say to the guy on the shop floor, hey, you go and you do this and everything. So it's like the most important piece of technology in any self-respecting manufacturing company. And so Tesla, and nobody in the S&P 500 was running anything other than anything. Tesla is running warp speed. That is their ERP because they have a site where it makes sense to build. And so, and in China, nobody used those big pieces of software. And so I think it's a very interesting moment in industrial tech where the space is fragmenting. And when I was in my time in San Francisco, there was that joke saying there are only two ways to make money in software for enterprise, bundling or unbundling, but you have to get the timing right. And so I firmly think that we're in an unbundling place.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, why would you say it's so hard for legacy manufacturers to implement AI, or has been traditionally? I mean, you talked about structural barriers you mentioned earlier. You talked about, I mean, just weak experimentation, low software latency. What is the biggest hurdle, would you say, or a myriad of few?
Yeah, I think the hardest thing is the chocolate covered broccoli. So the chocolate is the new tech, and the broccoli is your old way of doing it. So if you want to be successful at implementing the new tech, you need to invent a new way of operating, and that's really hard, especially in manufacturing where like you are dealing with safety, you are dealing with norms, you are dealing with a lot of things, like a lot of constraints, the physical constraints, like down machines, uh, and someone can die if the machine is not handled properly and everything. And so if you put new tech on top of existing processes and you change nothing, the gain will be zero. If you look at the new thing and you say, oh, okay, so there's that new thing called chocolate, maybe I should invent the cake, then you're going to make a lot of people happy. And that's really, at the end of the day, that's the hardest thing about it all. One of the big parts of the success of Build Your Dream, Xiaomi, SpaceX, all those new Android, all those new industrial, is that they started with a blank sheet. And they said, okay, there is all that new technology. What should I do with that? And they invented new ways of organizing. And for the next 10 to 20 years, all the legacy companies will look at Android, Tesla, Xiaomi, BYD, basic anything, and say, this is how they operate. Okay, I'll catch up. I'll do it.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. You just mentioned that about just. I love your analogy, by the way. Chocolate covered broccoli. That's that's great.
Sounds good.
But yeah, yeah, for sure, right? But I actually recently, in the past, I used to work for an AI startup company, and invariably we'd go to these enterprise legacy firms, and they want to integrate the chocolate, but don't want to touch the broccoli or have a different mindset. That's not correct. So they don't even understand how to implement the chocolate a lot of times, which is interesting what you just outlined there.
So for all the founders out there, there are three things that are incredibly important. And if you don't do that, you can kill your company. The first is, in our experience, there are 6% of innovators who can actually get rid of the broccoli. And so if you choose to work with someone who don't want to do it, you're going to fail. Not because of your tech, not because of anything that you do. It's just because you chose the wrong path. That's one. Second is, as change is hard and getting rid of the broccoli takes a lot of courage, you need to create a shit ton of money and value for people to have the courage to like move the needle. And so if the gain is not like meaningfully like moving the P&L, then don't bother. You cannot do small things that are extreme. And the third thing that we learned at OSS, which is like a very hard lesson, is there is a way of doing small things with AI and being successful. And the way is creating a company that sells a service. So we, for example, created a company that sells waste collection services, which is like not very sexy, but it's a very big business, especially for like industrial waste. And so we send the truck. It's 20% cheaper. Nobody knows why. It's fine. It's because there is AI everywhere inside of the company. We don't own the truck. Don't own the truck. We make someone else operate. We have an AI doing the routing to be able to recycle better. We have like a zillion cool pieces of tech. But from the point of view of the client, we're saying garbage services. And that's it. And so the only way of putting AI in companies that we know of is either from the top, C-level, disruptive, P&L, courage, 6%, or you sell the same service So the interface is exactly the same, and you create a separate company. Those are the only two ways we've been successful at implementing AI.
Yeah, that's very cool. Yeah.
Couple threads I want to pick on. You mentioned finding the right partners, which I think is always a really good point. For each of these companies, you had touched on how you guys like find founders, maybe somebody that's got like a struggling company, but can you dive a little bit deeper on that front?
So for the founders, one, we give a deal to founders, which we think is very good. They take 75% of the equity of a company that's already doing typically $500,000 in revenue. And we say to them, like, it's going to be incredibly hard, amazing. And then we fire 40% of them because we do a 12-week process with them saying, hey, okay, you are now the CEO of the company. We are going to take orders from you, order team, for 12 weeks. At the end of the 12 weeks, either we say, hell yeah, and we want to work with you, and you're going to be like the head of that company and everything, or we say, hell no, or you say, hell no. 40% of the time, we're thinking about it. And so instead of trying to overfit for like clever interviewing processes, AI, like looking at the bottom of your heart or whatever, like we don't buy that. We say, but after 12 weeks, being at war with like the lack of product market fit or whatever, or like everything that has to be done to create a big company, you know exactly who you're dealing with. And so one of my greatest pride is that out of the 22 companies, we actually had only one founder out of like 44 founders. And it was because of like personal reasons. So nothing to do with the business. And so I think that the only way we should be in information. And I come back to VC, like you're telling me that you are supposed to decide in 2 weeks if the person in front of you should give him like $10 million based on like 2 phone calls and 2 weeks of due diligence. Like, are you mad? Like, would you marry someone with that little information? Like, I don't know. What's happening?
It's great. So it's like a 12-week kind of trial period. Make sure it's a good fit for everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's just preparing someone to be your partner or client in that space, and it doesn't work out, but you spend some time to really understand that if it will be a good fit or not, which I think is great.
Exactly. And it's the same for industrial partners. So for industrial partners, they are like in the first few weeks when we start working with them, they are very like surprised by us because we say, hey, it's going to be free until it works, but we want to make sure of certain things. Like, let's say that we do 10 million gains. Can you pay $500,000 or like 1.5 million per year? Like, who would be deciding of that? What would be the process? Have you ever done that? No, we haven't. Oh, there's no process. No, you cannot see the CEO. All right, you know what? See ya.
You don't waste your time.
And so, exactly, I'm spending money for all those guys that sit in your factory solving your issues. So it's a balanced relationship.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. Well, we have a great offer. Like you said, they don't pay anything until it works. There'd be a time frame for it to make sense. Otherwise, everybody's spinning their wheels, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. This kind of realigns the incentive idea, which I love.
Exactly. Back to incentives.
With so you mentioned you traveled to 83 factories already this year, which is crazy. Last year, okay, which is a lot. So, where's your client base, and how are these folks finding you?
Yeah, so basically we have like 40% of our clients in the US. I would say 20 to 30% of the clients are in India and Southwest Asia. 0 clients in China because you have to be on Alibaba Cloud to operate over there. And so I'm not going to do that because I don't like my code to be stolen. And the rest is in Europe. We have such a diverse client base. And also, there is something great about manufacturing, which is like you talk to that guy who's like in North Dakota and you implement the thing. And then the guy says to you, hey, I'm actually part of a group that has bought like that Japanese factory and that crazy Indian factory. And so can you fly to Japan to implement the same thing? Because it's a sister factory. So the process are actually the same. And so you fly to Japan, it's actually the same factory. And so you implement the same software. You just like get it to be written from right to left or whatever. And it's done. And so it's a very like non-local vertical.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's a great way to do it, right? Take the same thing you're doing and put it into another factory somewhere else.
Yep.
Yeah, network effect.
Yeah. Is there, Ron, is there anything interesting that we haven't discussed yet as far as like anything new or innovative or trends that you're seeing real time that we haven't talked about yet?
I would say that one of the most important happening right now is the rush for data center and chips. And so, like, if you're building in that space, just congrats to you because it's going to be amazing. And I'm really looking forward in like 2 to 3 years when we finally like don't have to buy chips from like those companies you know of, and we finally get to another type of industry because that is going to be amazing. And also on that, I seriously urge all the big companies and all the big industrials to try and secure some data center capabilities and some energy because AI is one-on-one correlated to that. And so you should secure that.
Yeah, great points. Absolutely. I guess for more on the fund side of things, you mentioned that for other maybe investors or fund managers who are raising a fund today, who want to get exposed to this reindustrialization theme or ecosystem, any suggestions on whether they should be hunting or looking?
First, kudos because it's a really hard job. Like it's not my job, so it's easy for me to say that. I have a different set of challenge. Finding the right founder, finding the right idea, hunting, winning the deal because every single good deal is a competitive deal. And it's a very hard job. I have nothing but respect for investors. It's a very, very tough job. So kudos to them. What I would say is there is that tiny nexus of people who are from tech companies and who do those things in manufacturing. Those people are going to create outside value in the next couple of years because it's like fintech in 2005. It's like terra incognita, that enormous thing, and everybody knows a lot of value will be created. And the shortage is mainly talent. So follow the talent, follow them, and great things will happen.
But Renan, this has been great. I think this is a good spot for us to wrap up. Thank you so much for joining us. This is a lot of fun. Appreciate you sharing your insights. Where could people go to connect with you and learn more about OSS Ventures?
Sure. Thank you so much. To contact us, please head to OSS Ventures. We also are fairly active on the LinkedIn.
Awesome. Well, Renan, we'll make sure to include links and everything down there below in the show notes. Thank you again so much for joining us. Really appreciate the conversation.